Okay, so we've got this really interesting collection of sayings about Ramadan. These hadiths, right? Like these are
Yeah.
basically like, guides for Muslims, right? Coming straight from the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, exactly. They offer insights into how to practice Islam, especially during times like Ramadan.
Yeah, so Ramadan's kind of a big deal, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but it's more than just fasting, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's about deep spiritual reflection and prayer and just getting closer to Allah.
Yeah.
Fasting is like a way to kind of purify yourself and, strengthen that connection.
There's this one hadith here that really caught my eye. It says Ramadan has like a three-part structure. It starts with mercy, then the middle is forgiveness, and it ends with freedom from hellfire.
Whoa, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
It's beautiful how it kind of shows the spiritual journey. It starts with Allah's mercy, like even before you start fasting, and then as you purify yourself through, fasting and prayer, you enter this period of deep forgiveness.
Like a spiritual deep clean.
Exactly. And by the end of Ramadan, if you've been sincere in this process, you're granted freedom from hellfire. So it's a powerful promise for sure.
So knowing that, could someone actually like use that three-part structure to kind of guide their actions during Ramadan?
Oh, for sure. Knowing that it starts with mercy, you might spend those first 10 days just reflecting, seeking forgiveness for your past mistakes. And then the middle 10 days, you could maybe intensify your prayer and good deeds, tapping into that forgiveness. And then the last 10 days, really pushing for that freedom from hellfire, maximizing your worship and good deeds.
Okay, so there's this other hadith that connects fasting with that freedom from hellfire. The one that says, fasting for a day in the way of Allah keeps your face away from the hellfire for 70 years.
70 years is a long
That's
time.
a long time. But what does that even mean?
Well, the key there is fasting in the way of Allah. It's not just skipping meals and drinks. It's about really aligning your actions and intentions with Islamic principles. So it's avoiding, negativity, embracing kindness and charity, and just dedicating your fast to Allah. That's what makes it a shield against hellfire.
Okay, but 70 years, is that literal or is there like a deeper meaning behind that number?
Yeah, it's probably more metaphorical. It's about emphasizing the huge reward and protection that Allah grants for sincere fasting. The number just emphasizes, the magnitude of the blessing and the long-term impact of just one day of devotion.
So it's not really about the years, but about understanding that what we do now has these ripple effects.
Right. It's about recognizing how important our choices are and trying to make each fast like a stepping stone towards a better life, both in this world and the next.
Okay, there are also a couple hadiths here that focus on supplication during Ramadan, like specifically for those who are fasting. Why is prayer so powerful during this time?
Well, one hadith says that the prayer of a fasting person is never rejected.
Never. Wow. What makes Ramadan so special for prayer?
I think fasting is seen as this like selfless devotion,
Yeah.
a humbling act that brings you closer to Allah. When you're fasting, you're putting your physical needs aside for spiritual growth, and that sincerity makes your supplications more likely to be accepted.
Yeah.
You're showing your commitment and how serious you are about connecting with Allah.
This one hadith even talks about giving food to someone breaking their fast, and it says that the giver gets the same reward as the person fasting without like taking away from the faster's reward at all.
Right. It's wild.
So how does that work? The spiritual math doesn't quite add up.
Well, it's fascinating because we're not talking about some limited reward, Allah's generosity is boundless, so the reward for doing good is multiplied, not divided. It's about focusing on the giving, not on keeping score.
That's a good point. It encourages us to be generous without worrying about whether we're getting enough back.
Yeah.
It's just the focus to just give it, which is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And it highlights how important it is to support each other, and recognizing that what we do can really have a positive impact on other people's spiritual journeys.
Wow. I'm already seeing how much depth there is to these hadiths, and there's still so much more to uncover.
Oh, we're just getting started.
We'll be back with more Ramadan insights after a quick break, so don't go anywhere.
We were talking about giving food to someone breaking their fast. It's such a simple act, but it really speaks to the whole spirit of Ramadan.
Yeah, and the reward for that is unbelievable. The hadith says the giver gets like the same reward as the person fasting without taking anything away from the faster's reward.
I know, it's amazing. It shows this concept of shared reward,
Yeah.
Like by helping someone break their fast, you're kind of joining their spiritual journey, sharing in the blessings of their worship.
It's like this awesome cycle of generosity and shared blessings.
Exactly. And this hadith also shows how important community is during Ramadan, you know?
Mhm.
It's not just about your own personal spiritual growth, it's about supporting and uplifting each other on this journey we're all on together.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little. There's this other hadith that talks about the incredible reward for fasting just one day in the way of Allah. It says Allah will keep that person's face away from hellfire for 70 years.
Yeah, that's a powerful image. But remember, it's about fasting in the way of Allah, like we talked about earlier.
Right. I get that it's more than just like the physical part of fasting. But what are some real world examples of how someone can really live that idea of fasting in the way of Allah?
Well, think about it like this. While you're not eating or drinking, you're also training yourself to avoid those negative thoughts, you know?
Mhm.
Harmful speech and actions that go against Islamic teachings. It's about being more mindful, more compassionate, and just more aware of how you affect others.
Well, like instead of getting all hangry and snapping at someone, you take a step back, remember your fast, and respond with patience and kindness.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. It's about taking those little everyday moments and using them as opportunities to strengthen your spiritual muscles, you know? Like replacing bad habits with good ones, using that discipline of fasting to build a more positive, fulfilling way of life.
So it's not just about what you're not doing, it's also about what you are doing to really live those Islamic principles.
Exactly. And that's where the real transformation happens.
Okay, so we keep coming back to this hadith about the three phases of Ramadan. It's clearly like a really important piece of wisdom for understanding this month.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It describes Ramadan as beginning with mercy, its middle is forgiveness, and its end is freedom from hellfire.
It's like a roadmap for the soul,
Yeah.
you know, guiding you through this incredible journey of transformation.
Exactly. It shows how Ramadan isn't just about deprivation, but about spiritual enrichment and renewal.
But wait, hold on, we keep mentioning this freedom from hellfire, but what does that even mean? Is it literal or is it more symbolic?
Yeah, it's a strong metaphor. It's meant to emphasize the ultimate goal of what we're striving for, you know. During Ramadan and beyond, it represents the state of being free from the bad consequences of our actions. It's a reminder that we have the power to shape our own destiny through our choices.
So it's not just about avoiding hellfire in the afterlife, but about creating a more fulfilling and meaningful life here and now by aligning ourselves with what's right.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that what we do has consequences and trying to make choices that lead to good outcomes, both for ourselves and the people around us.
Earlier, we were discussing how powerful prayer is during Ramadan, especially for those who are fasting. But one hadith really stood out, the one that says the prayer of a fasting person is never rejected.
It's amazing, right? But why do you think that is what makes Ramadan so special for prayer?
Well, we talked about how fasting is a form of selfless devotion.
Yeah.
You're putting your physical needs aside for spiritual growth.
Hmm.
Maybe it's because in that state of vulnerability and submission, you're really opening yourself up to Allah's guidance
Yeah.
and mercy. Your heart is more receptive. Your intentions are purer.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Fasting creates a space for a deeper connection with the divine, you know? It strips away distractions and lets you focus on what truly matters.
It's like stripping away the noise to hear that inner voice more clearly.
Exactly. And in that state of heightened spiritual awareness, your prayers carry so much weight. It's a time to ask for what you truly need, both for yourself and for the world around you.
Okay, let's move on to another interesting concept. Lailatul Qadr, the night of power.
Ah, yes. This night is considered more blessed than 1,000 months. It's one of the most highly anticipated nights of Ramadan.
Okay, 1,000 months, that's over 83 years. No wonder it's so special. But why all the secrecy around it? Why don't we know exactly when it falls?
Well, the exact date is unknown, which encourages Muslims to be extra diligent in their worship, you
Mhm.
know, especially during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. It's about seeking it out, intensifying your efforts, and really making the most of every moment.
It's like a spiritual treasure hunt,
Mhm.
adding this element of excitement and anticipation to the end of Ramadan. But wouldn't it be easier if we just knew the date?
Maybe, but the uncertainty keeps you striving and devoted, you know? It pushes you to make every night count, to push yourself beyond your limits. It's about maintaining that heightened state of awareness and spiritual connection, not just on one specific night, but throughout the whole month.
So the mystery isn't just about finding the right night. It's about cultivating a deeper connection with Allah every single day of Ramadan.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful lesson that goes way beyond Ramadan.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still more to explore. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Yeah, that was a really good point about Laylatul Qadr there. The mystery actually makes us try harder, you know, makes every night important. Exactly. It reminds us that it's not just about the destination, it's about the whole journey, you know?
Okay, we've been talking a lot about this idea of fasting in the way of Allah, throughout this whole deep dive. It's clearly super important, but I'm still trying to figure out what it really means to actually live that way.
Well, there's this one hadith that puts it really well. It says that fasting for even just one day in the way of Allah will keep you away from hellfire for like 70 years.
We've talked about that one, but I think I'm starting to see it differently now,
Yeah.
It's not just about the reward, it's about realizing how powerful that one day can be,
Mm.
that one choice to align yourself with Allah.
Exactly. It's about understanding that everything you do, everything you think, it all matters. And when you fast sincerely, with the right intention and purpose, it creates this ripple effect that goes way beyond that one day.
It's like setting a whole new standard for yourself, a new way of living your life, and that has a lasting impact.
Exactly. And this hadith shows us that even small acts of devotion, when they're done with sincerity and purity, can have huge consequences.
Mm.
Consequences that last.
So we've been talking about this hadith with the 3 phases of Ramadan throughout our conversation. It's obviously like a really important piece of wisdom for understanding this month.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful hadith. It describes Ramadan as beginning with mercy, the middle is forgiveness, and the end is freedom from hellfire.
We've talked about each of those parts separately, but I'm curious, how do they all fit together? How does understanding this progression help us experience Ramadan more meaningfully?
It's like a guide for spiritual transformation. Ramadan starts with Allah's mercy surrounding us, creating a fertile ground for growth. And as we work to purify ourselves through fasting, prayer, and good deeds, we tap into that mercy and enter this time of deep forgiveness. Our past mistakes are wiped clean, and we get a fresh start.
So the mercy sets the stage, the forgiveness cleanses us, and then that last part, freedom from hellfire, represents like the culmination of the journey.
Exactly. It's not just about avoiding punishment. It's about reaching a state of spiritual freedom where we're free from the negative effects of what we've done.
It's about achieving a level of inner peace and contentment that comes from aligning yourself with what Allah wants.
That's a great way to put it, and it reminds us that this journey doesn't end with Ramadan. It's a continuous process of growth and striving that we carry with us throughout our lives.
And speaking of continuous journeys, we can't forget about the power of prayer, especially during Ramadan. That hadith about the prayer of a fasting person never being rejected really stuck with me.
It reminds us that we have a direct line to Allah, especially during this time. Fasting opens up this space for a deeper intimacy and connection with the divine.
But sometimes it's hard to know what to pray for. Do you have any advice for people who might be feeling lost or unsure of what to ask for during Ramadan?
I think the important thing to remember is that Allah knows what's in our hearts even before we ask. So just approach prayer with sincerity and honesty. Pour your heart out to Allah, share your hopes, your fears, your dreams. Ask for guidance, for strength, for forgiveness, for whatever your soul really needs.
So it's not about just reciting memorized words. It's about having a real conversation with Allah.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of praying for other people. Ask for healing, for peace, for guidance for the people around you, for the whole world. Your prayers can make a difference not just in your own life, but in the lives of others too.
And lastly, let's touch on Laylatul Qadr one more time. It's a night full of mystery, but also full of spiritual potential.
The night of power, a night that's said to be more blessed than 1,000 months. It's a night where the heavens open and our prayers are answered with incredible favor.
We talked about how the mystery surrounding when it happens encourages us to try harder during those last 10 nights of Ramadan, but what happens after Ramadan ends? How do we hold on to that feeling of heightened spiritual awareness and make it last?
That's the real test, isn't it? But the things we learn and the progress we make spiritually during Ramadan, they don't just vanish overnight. They become a part of who we are. They shape our character and guide our actions in the months that come after.
So it's about carrying that spirit of Ramadan with us, making those practices and intentions part of our everyday lives.
Exactly. It's about continuing to seek knowledge, to do kind and generous things, to try to be the best we can be in everything we do. It's about living each day with intention and purpose, remembering that our actions have consequences in this life and the next.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive into the wisdom of these hadiths. Thank you so much for guiding us through this journey of understanding and discovery.
The pleasure was all mine. I hope this has been helpful for everyone listening. May these insights inspire you to approach Ramadan with a renewed sense of purpose. And may this blessed month be a time of huge growth and transformation for all of us.